Oklahoma Gardening is a production of the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the land grant mission of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University, dedicated to improving the quality of life of the citizens of Oklahoma through research-based information. Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, Tulsa's source for great gardens, southwoodgardencenter.com, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry, helping to keep Oklahoma green and growing. Today on Oklahoma Gardening, host Casey Hentges finds a surprise ground cover in our orchard. We check out a tall, wispy ornamental grass swaying in the breeze. And we continue our tour of gardening in northwest Oklahoma with a few stops in Alva. On the tour, we visit an oasis on a windy hill, a unique sunken garden that you just want to dive into. And we go out into Woods County with the Greg Highfill to survey the recovery of plant life after several years of wildfires. And back home, Barbara Brown has a refreshing parfait.
Here at the Botanic Gardens, we had a little happy accident that I wanted to share with you guys, and that's this cypress vine growing here in our new blueberry patch. Now, this wasn't intended to grow, it just happened to grow. If you're not familiar with cypress vine, it's a great little vine that is good for pollinators such as butterflies and also hummingbirds, especially like the pink and the red tubular flowers. Now, cypress vine should be treated as an annual because it is a tropical vine. However, it can reseed itself here in Oklahoma. In the further southern states of the United States, it actually has naturalized a little bit, but so far hasn't become a problem that it's competing with the natives and causing them to die back or anything. It is, though, a fast-growing vine, so you got to be careful with it. You can see here what was a happy accident of it reseeding itself in our blueberry patch. It actually has just grown really quickly and taken off. Now, oftentimes when you plant a vine, you want to plant it next to something to support that growth. And you can see here, obviously, there was nothing for it to grow on except for a few plants, which the cypress vine will find its way up. It's not one that you have to train. They will twine around anything that goes vertical, so you can see it's grown up a few of our blueberry plants. But the majority of it that we really like is how it's created such an impressive ground cover, a temporary ground cover in that it is tropical. I know oftentimes we use sweet potato vine to use as a ground cover to quickly fill in that area to reduce weed growth. But you might also consider cypress vine for its quick growth and its lovely fern texture. As you can see, it's just billowing over our rock wall here. After all, it is in the same genus as sweet potato vine, Ipomoea. You've heard me talk about pink muley grass, which is Muhlenbergia capillaris. This is another type of Muhlenbergia. This is Muhlenbergia domosa, and it is also known as bamboo muley. And you can see that it still has a light, fluffy texture to it, like the other Muhlenbergia. But this one is actually segmented stems, giving it that bamboo look. Bamboo muley also needs full sun and will get to be about 4 feet tall by 4 feet wide. It is native to Arizona and also Mexico, where it's protected and it grows up in rocky areas protected from grazing animals. Unlike most ornamental grasses, it does not do well when grazed or even cut back. And in fact, this Muhlenbergia should be treated more like an annual, as it's only hardy to zone 8 here, so you probably won't need to cut it back because it'll die through the winter months. It's a great plant to add next to bold foliage like cannas, where it will really show off the fine texture of this plant, or by itself in a container where you'll create a fountain of foliage. of Janet and Max Wonger, just north of Alva, and we're in their backyard. And Janet, you've got a beautiful oasis back here.
Well, thank you very much.
So I know you get a lot of wind up here.
Yes,
You're kind of on a hill north of Alva.
We are, yes we are.
And is it hot usually in the
It's
summer?
usually
I
very
imagine?
hot and very windy up through here. There's not a lot of windbreak, so we get a lot of the wind, yes.
Well, I love this kind of little oasis you've created. You've got a lot
Well,
of
thank
water
you.
features.
I do.
And what are some of the plants that you have found that are really tough and can handle these
Well,
conditions?
Gaillardias is one of them. It's really been a good plant. It comes back every year for me. I haven't lost very many of them, and yeah, we really like that.
Yeah, you've got quite a few up there. I mean, I know some homeowners have issues with them not reseeding, but yours seem to be doing well.
It's done very well, very
So
well.
fortunately, we've gotten some June rain for you here.
Yes.
Is that greening things up?
Yes, that's unusual for this time of year for us, for sure.
So you've got several crepe myrtles around as well. Can you tell us about those?
Yes, we started with crepe myrtles a long time ago, and we have had really good luck with them. I have them just all over the yard, different sizes. I try to do things that work with the landscape and different colors.
Yeah.
And I've really had good luck with them too. So.
Well, and what I really like that you've done is you've used the right size crepe myrtles for some of your placements and everything, instead of having to worry about cutting them back.
Yeah, I
and
don't
stuff.
have to do that. Yeah, I have some that's really dwarf, and then I have some that's the taller, 4 or 5 foot, and just make it work with my landscape. Yeah.
So you're a rose gardener too. Can you tell us
Yes.
a little bit about some of your roses?
Oh, I have mostly shrub roses or floribundas because they do look better in our climate. You know, it's just really hot and dry, and we don't get a lot of rain, so you need to have something that's going to work, and that does best for me. I do have one tea rose, but it's a Chrysler Imperial, which is one that I really, really like and had good luck with it. But mainly it's floribundas.
Okay. And have you seen any issues with rose rosette or anything?
No, I haven't.
Okay, that's good.
I hope not.
To know that it hasn't gotten out here to your backyard anyway.
Yeah.
Well, I love this beautiful arbor that you have here. Does your husband help create some of these features?
Yes, he did. He built this for me several years ago. Welded this together.
And it looks like it might hold up to this
Wisteria.
wisteria, yeah.
Yes, it has really well. We've enjoyed it.
Well, Janet, this is just a lovely little oasis, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you. We're here in the backyard of Elwyn and Evelyn Hoffman, and outside of Alva. And Evelyn, you have a beautiful backyard. It looks like one of your
thank
oasis
you.
here. And I love the sunken garden. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Yes, this sunken garden happened as a result of having a swimming pool below ground when the children were at home, Brian, Brent, and Brad. And when they got married and moved away, we decided that was too much work for Mom and Dad.
Okay.
So we turned the sunken swimming area into our garden area with a patio that we could enjoy the family in a new way.
Yeah, it's absolutely fabulous. I love how you transform that into a functional space for your family.
Yes.
And you even put rocks in it and stuff?
We did, and my husband and I and our 3 sons poured all of that concrete with an electric mixer. So
wow. Blood, sweat, and tears in that garden right there.
It was, but it was enjoyable.
Very
and it was fun. And that's what part of gardening is all about, is to enjoy your family.
Yeah.
And so we thoroughly enjoyed that.
Well, it looks like you have a lot of seating area around here, and you might enjoy
Yes.
entertaining a little bit.
We do, a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about the plants. I saw some French hollyhocks that you have.
Yes.
Is that one of your favorites?
That is a favorite of mine. And I like Angelinos, which is the purple flower that is always forgiving and blooming all the time.
It keeps coming back, doesn't it?
It keeps coming back, yes.
So this is an interesting rock feature here in your garden. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, that was a rock that was on my father's pasture. And so these particular isinglasses is what was used. The pioneers used these as windows in their old cabins and things. And you can see through that glass.
Yeah.
So we were fortunate to have glass today. But back then they used the isinglass.
That's amazing. And you can see how it makes sheets almost.
Yes.
That it breaks apart that way.
It does.
So you do a lot of container gardening, it looks like, also.
I do. I enjoy the container gardening because you can sit on your stool and roll around and take care of your garden.
Okay. And do you have some helpers that help with this container gardening?
I do. My husband helps me a lot, and my children and grandchildren, because they are a part of our gardening. And my desire and dream was that we would instill in them the love of gardening. Our youngest grandchildren they went to the greenhouse and picked out the flowers in both of these pots and then planted them. And they're responsible for watering them.
Oh, very nice.
So
It teaches them responsibility.
Absolutely.
And cause and effect if you don't water
That's
it.
right, that's right.
So have you always been a gardener, or how did you get into gardening?
Not always. As a child growing up, we had the old push mowers and the little hand clippers. And I thought, if that's gardening, I want no part of it. And so my husband, when we got married in '71, said, "Oh, honey, there's so much more to gardening than that." So he taught me how to work with a garden, plant flowers, and I thoroughly enjoy it.
Well, you've done a fabulous job.
Oh,
And
thank you.
It looks like not only do you do ornamental gardening, but you also have a nice-sized vegetable garden back here as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes, we enjoy the vegetables, tomatoes and onions, eggplants, squash, all kinds of peppers, watermelon, and it's an art of love that we enjoy fresh, and some herbs.
Yeah.
We do parsley and cilantro and various herbs as well.
So you have coffee cans around your plants. Can you tell me a little bit about why you did that?
Yes. Take the bottoms out of the coffee cans and put them down in the ground, and then when you water, you're able to water just the can and not the weeds that want to grow to the side.
Oh, okay.
And it gets right down to the root system.
Yeah.
And then put the dirt around them as much as you can and mulch them, and that helps preserve the moisture.
Yeah, it probably protects from a few insects also getting in at the stems.
It does. And this spring I released 3,000 ladybugs
Oh, wow.
into the garden.
All right.
Because they are avid aphid eaters.
Correct, yeah, and I bet your grandkids love seeing those as
we
well
had
in
a
the garden.
release night, and they thought it was the most amazing thing they'd ever seen.
That's fantastic.
In fact, they were a little bit scared because as you release them, they come up on your arm, and then they realized they wouldn't bite, that it was a safe one. So it's, I've done that for several years now, and it helps a lot.
Well, Evelyn, it just really seems like a nice sanctuary that you've created back here, and we appreciate you sharing it with us.
Well, thank you so much.
Just west of Alva, Oklahoma in Woods County, and joining us today is Greg Highfill, who is the OSU County Extension Educator for Woods County. Greg, what brings us out here is we wanted to kind of look at the ecology and the horticulture, and unfortunately northwestern Oklahoma has experienced a lot of wildfires. Can you tell us a little bit about the history out here with that?
Well, we've had an interesting 4 years, beginning back in 2015. when we had a wildfire in the northern part of Woodward County that burned a significant number of acres, maybe 20 to 30,000. That wasn't as big as some of the recent fires, but certainly a significant event. We got it stopped before it got to the Cimarron River, which is Woods County, of course, but certainly a challenge back in 2015. Then in 2016, of course, was the Anderson Creek fire. Started just down the road here where the Anderson Creek Bridge is, right on the highway, and burned a significant part of Woods County and, of course, on into Kansas. We spent a number of weeks fighting wildfire, working with donors that sent us hay, and helping producers replace miles and miles of fence. And then in 2017, of course, was the fire out west in Beaver and Harper counties, and of course that did the significant damage up in Kansas, and just significant all around.
Yeah.
And then certainly here in 2018, Dewey County, Woodward County, those were huge fires as well. And all the extension educators in this part of the state have been part of supplying hay donation relief, manning those phones,
Right.
and doing that as a part of our efforts to help producers. And so it's been a busy 4 years here.
Right.
From an agriculture standpoint, certainly the difference between a wildfire and a prescribed burn is huge. Wildfires tend to be on 50-mile-an-hour wind days and not 20-mile-an-hour wind days, and that just creates such a heat that those are so significant. And to talk about that would talk about the losing fences.
Right.
These unplanned fires where we don't have fire breaks and aren't in control like we are in a prescribed burn. They're just so destructive, and so we've replaced miles and miles of fence, different structures, replaced hay, and all those types of things. Now, that being said,
Right.
certainly the effect on the landscape is much the same as a prescribed burn as far as decreasing the cedar trees that we have here and being able to cut them, stealing the water, and increase grass production. These areas have responded wonderfully. Certainly we would have wanted a little more rain back in 17, right after that the Anderson Creek fire, but we're recovering nicely, and these pastures are doing a great job, and again, in their recovery efforts.
Yeah, I mean, looking behind us, we see a lot of eastern red cedar skeletons, if you will.
Yes.
And obviously, this pasture was kind of getting a little out of control with the cedar trees, but now it's transformed back to pasture and grassland.
Certainly more productive, and again, yes, is responding nicely. We did pick an area here that was heavier in trees, but even the normal pastures that are managed for cedars a little more intensely, certainly it took care of a lot of those cedar problems. And prescribed burn people have a saying: any dead cedar tree is a good fire. So we're out to get them, and they're just encroaching and such a menace on our landscape. It's a real challenge to keep them under control.
Because not only are they shading out plants, but they're also stealing the water from those plants, the grasses that we would like to have.
I think they estimate 300 gallons a year that they're stealing water out from under all these plants that obviously wouldn't be here if they hadn't have lost the cedar competition. So just a great resource and a tool. Land that we see that is managed under prescribed burning tends to respond a little better to a burn than a wildfire because of the thatch, because of the different, because of the way a wildfire goes through. But that being said, it's still a positive.
Right, right. With a wildfire, you don't necessarily know when that pasture has been burned last.
Sure.
There might be more fuel to it.
Sure.
Prescribed land typically is burned more frequently. So
absolutely. Okay. As you look across this landscape that's covered with cedars, 5 years ago would have had half the grazing potential as it does today, and just because of the sheer volume of it. And so,
and how many years has it been since this burned? What was
this would have been 2016, so this would be the second spring. Yes.
Well, Greg, I know we often hear about the wildfires when they're happening, but it's nice to take a look back and see the good that comes out of the devastation. Thank you for sharing with us.
Great to be here.
Today is a grape dessert salad. Now that's grape, G-R-A-P, not G-R-E-A-T, so I hope you'll enjoy it. I'm starting with 2 different colors of grapes. You can use any kind. I would suggest seedless because they're easier to work with. And then the other thing that I think is really important, no matter what age, is that you cut them in half. The reason for that is I cut them in half the long way because grapes are usually longer one direction than the other. So cut them in half the long direction, and that way you really reduce the potential for choking. So that's just a food safety tip. But I've got green seedless and black seedless. You could use whichever kind of seedless grapes you have, all of one or all of another. And if you can't get seedless, then feel free to use the others and just make sure you get the pits out of them because they do have a bit of a bitter flavor to them. What I'm doing here is I've got 2 ounces of soft Neuchâtel cheese, which is basically reduced fat, 1/3 reduced fat cream cheese. And I'm trying to soften it up just a little bit, and I think we're pretty well close to where I need it to be. And to that I'm going to add 1/4 of a cup of sour cream. You can use a reduced fat version if you want to. This salad is really sweet, and the fat content here helps counteract that a little bit. You can also cut back a little bit on the sugar, but it's one of those things where the combination of the two is kind of what makes it. So that's why some people would use this for a salad as in the main part of the meal, but I'm switching it to a dessert. Mixing those together, trying to make sure you get all the lumps out of the cream cheese and get them well blended. And then I'm going to stir in 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar and a 1/4 of a teaspoon of vanilla, so a very small amount of vanilla. Normally in something that's mostly white, I would use a clear vanilla. But for this kind of thing, because we're going to be adding some brown sugar in the grapes, it really doesn't darken it that much. It also has a pretty small quantity here. So for that reason, it's not so much of an issue as well. Just trying to get everything back in the bowl in one piece. Once those are well blended and you get as many of the lumps out as you can, then you're ready to add the grapes to it. So if you've had those prepared ahead of time, make sure that you pat them dry because you don't want water going in here that's going to dilute. So I've got 1 cup of dark grapes and 1 cup of green. So it's a total of 2, whichever kind you're planning to use. Blend those together. Get everything coated. Because this is a dessert, we want to kind of serve it in something a little bit fancy on occasion. So I've got a little cup here that we're going to put them into. But before I get quite to that stage, I also have 2 teaspoons of brown sugar and 2 teaspoons of toasted pecan pieces. You can use the pecans as big or as small as you want them to be. We're just going to blend those together a little bit. There's really no magic to that part of it. It's just get them all in the same bowl and stir them up because they're not hot at this point. And then we're going to add those to our little cup. Put our dessert into it. And this whole recipe will make about 4 servings, so you can kind of decide when you divide it out. It should be about a 1/2 cup of grapes per person. And then a little bit of the brown sugar and pecan mixture over the top to give it some more texture and a little bit more sweetness. And then if you'd like, you could stick in a little bit of mint just as a garnish. And there you have it, grape dessert salad for Oklahoma Gardening. I'm Barbara Brown.
There are lots of great horticultural events this time of year. Be sure and consider these activities when you're making your plans for the weeks ahead. Next week, we continue our regional tour of Northwest Oklahoma with a trip to the very tip of the Panhandle and a hike along the Black Mesa with Oklahoma Biological Survey to explore the multitude of native plants adding color and beauty to the shortgrass prairie. And in Guyman, we visit a secluded home garden made for entertaining, and Helms Nursery, which specializes in growing gorgeous plants that are fit for the rigors of Northwest Oklahoma landscapes. We hope you join us then for more TV You'll Grow to Love. To find out more information about show topics, as well as recipes, videos, articles, fact sheets, and other resources, including a directory of local extension offices, be sure and visit our website, oklahomagardening.okstate.edu. And we always have great information, answers to questions, photos, and gardening discussions on your favorite social media as well. Join in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can find this entire show and other recent shows, as well as individual segments on our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. And tune in to our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel to watch segments from previous hosts. Oklahoma Gardening is produced by the Oklahoma Cooperative Extension Service as part of the Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources at Oklahoma State University. The Botanic Garden at OSU is home to our studio gardens, and we encourage you to come visit this beautiful Stillwater jewel. We wish to thank our generous underwriters, Southwood Landscape and Garden Center, and the Oklahoma Department of Agriculture, Food, and Forestry. Additional support is provided by Pond Pro Shops, Greenleaf Nursery and the Garden Debut Plants, and the Oklahoma Horticultural Society.